What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Shiv, and today we're going to look at another set of Mean Street of Gadgetzan cards. I originally had another video that didn't have nearly all the cards that recently came out, but every single day that I was going to go and redo the video, they came out with more cards and more cards. Finally, I figured, fuck it, let's just do it on Thanksgiving. So in between cooking dinner for my family, I figured, let's go ahead and do this review. Alright, starting out, we've got the Burgly Bully. 5 mana 4/6. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, add a coin to your hand. Now, in theory, this sounds like really good for, say, maybe to counter some of the more annoying decks that are, say, using the Arcane Giants or possibly a Tempo Mage. Okay, sure, why not? Where I see this fitting in is probably in some sort of rogue type deck, because that's where they're going to get some of the most value out of it. But at the same time, I'm just not 100% sold on the card. I think it has some really good potential, but it might as well just say 4/6 taunt. Alright, if you play this down and they've got any minions on the board, they're going to basically boost up to try to remove this out so you don't get any of that sustained value, which in a way is kind of good and kind of bad. So if you're planning on using this to get that value on it, 9 times out of 10, you're just not going to get it. Moving on to the next card, we have the Mana Geode. This is a 2-drop. Everybody wanted a priest to have a good 2-drop. Did they get it? No, not really. So it's 2 mana 2/3. Whenever this minion is healed, summon a 2/2 crystal. Now, on theory, this sounds really good, except for one problem. Playing this on turn 2 against several classes basically means it's dead. Alright, Fiery War Axe kills this. An empowered Spirit Claws kills this. Lightning. I mean, there's so many ways of killing this. So getting that extra value out of it is almost non-existent in what we have currently. So that might be somewhat of a problem, which means you're going to have to play this off curve in order to get the value out of it. That right there never works out overly well. But this is Priest. They're all about playing off curve. If you haven't noticed, they do a lot of shit off fucking curve. So that might actually work for them. We'll have to wait and see. But all in all, a board full of little 2/2 crystals does not inspire me in any way, shape, or form. Simply due to the fact that there's AoEs that do 2 damage. There's quite a few of them. Alright, so this isn't really all that good. Fuck, even Explosive Trap wrecks the shit out of this plan. So, not a huge fan of it. Moving on to the next card, we have Aya Blackpaw. So here we are getting into the whole Jade Lotus, and as we know, Jade Lotus is Shaman, Druid, and Rogue. So 6 mana 5/3, Battle Cry, and Death Rattle, summon a Jade Golem. Now, we talked about the Jade Golems briefly, how we didn't know what they were in the last video. We talked about them. We didn't know what they were and how they were going to work, and depending on how that actually works would determine how valuable these synergies would be. Well, here we've got one that says, hey, you're going to get 2 of them. And if you're clever and crafty enough, you can technically get 3 off of this using Bronzebeard. Alright? So, I think before we move on to any of the other cards, we need to actually take a look at what a Jade Golem actually is. Alright, so here's the Jade Golem. Notice how it keeps increasing in size. The way the Jade Golem mechanic works is the first one will come out as a 1/1, the second one a 2/2, the third one a 3/3, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Now you'll notice that these numbers go up to 30. So it is possible to get these up to 30. Though the person who gets it up to 30, my hat's off to you, man. You put way too much time and dedication for this. This is like literally a card that or a mechanic they put in just to see if people could reach that 30 mark. And you know there's going to be people doing videos for it. Trollton's going to have a fucking field day with that shit. Realistically, though, I don't think we're going to see these massive Jade Golems. I would say maybe 10 or 12 is going to be like the biggest one we'll probably see commonly. With the outliner of maybe 15, 16 there. But anything other than that, it's going to be really, really difficult outside of Druid. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Alright, so next card we have is the Jade Lightning. Oh, it's a Shaman spell. 4 mana, deal 4 damage. That is horrible value. It's a 1/1 value, but you summon a Jade Golem, and we already saw how those Jade Golems are going to work. So that might actually have some value. Even at the very worst, if you only get like 1 Jade Golem, or like a couple of these little Jade Golems out, and you throw Evolve on it, all of a sudden you're building an even bigger, stronger board. And since the Jade Golem hit the board, the next one is still going to ramp up as well. So you kind of get some really cool value out of it. But 4 mana for this, is this going to be good? Maybe. I'm always really hesitant when I see Shaman get any more face damage. That's always the scary thing. We all remember the, the triggering effect that Crackle had, alright? This is nowhere near as bad, but it's like that in-between positive range on Crackle here. But Crackle was was less expensive than this and had the Overload. This doesn't have Overload, and it's pretty expensive. But I think this is actually a really nice card. It goes along with the theme we've been seeing from Blizzard. Spells that also provide board state. That way they're not like a net loss for tempo. So I like it. I do like it just for that. But will it be used? Maybe. Very strong maybe on that. Moving on. Jade Spirit. Okay, so we've got a tri-class here. Usable in 3 classes. 4 mana for a 2/3. That is horrible statting. Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem. This is probably one of the weakest of the Jade Golem cards that are out there. A 2/3 for 4 mana is horrible no matter how you put it out there. At least with Defender of Argus, you're providing a +1 buff to the things to the left and right of it. And they get taunt. And that has a value of its own. This doesn't do this. This, at its very worst, basically it's 4 mana for a 3/4. That's not overly great. However, if this is the second Jade Golem, then all of a sudden it becomes 4 mana for 4/5. It's starting to get a little bit better. That's actually the break-even point. So if you could get one other Jade Golem out, and then you play this, you're breaking even. If you have 2 Jade Golems out, now you're actually starting to get more value out of it. So it kind of sucks because of that, but if you're going for a complete Jade Golem type deck, then this makes a lot of sense. But still, 4 mana for a 2/3, that's not very powerful at all, guys. It's not very powerful at all. This is basically a card you want to play much later on in your curve rather than on curve, just because the initial cost of it is so goddamn expensive. It just makes me cringe. But the fact that it's shared amongst 3 classes gives it a little bit more value on it. So I think there's something to be said about that. Alright, moving on to the next card. We have the Jade Shuriken. Whatever. 2 mana, deal 2 damage. Bad. Combo, summon a Golem. Okay, so combo. If you play a 0 mana spell or coin or whatever, you do the 2 damage and you get to summon a 1/1 at the very minimum. Is that any good? Well, 2 mana for 3, it still actually equates out. But the fact is, you still have to play something as a prerequisite before you can get that value. So, it's kind of cool. I could definitely see some value in it, but I don't know. It's a general problem I'm seeing with a lot of the Jade Lotus cards here is the amount of already established investment in order to justify the value of these cards. And that's not always a good thing, you know? A lot of them are running at a negative sum to begin with, but as you progressively go forward, it gets better. It kind of reminds me of like Reagan economics system here. But, hey, that's just me. Alright, moving forward. We've got the Jade Swarmer Rogue card. 2 mana, 1/1 stealth, death rattle, summon a Jade Golem. Alright, so at 2 mana for this effect, I'm not overly impressed. Not gonna lie, not overly impressed. The fact is, it's gonna sit on the board and be unmolested except for against like random damage and or AoEs. Kinda cool. All of a sudden, you can start using stuff to buff it up and actually have tempo trade value, and also having the other minions. So at its bare minimum, you're paying 2 mana for 2 1/1s and stealth, and that's still not overly that good. I mean, for 2 mana, I could play 2 Argent Squires, which have way more value than this card. But again, if this isn't the first time you've gotten a Jade Golem out, the value goes up from there. So again, it's not bad off curve, but on curve, it's pretty much going to be the one thing you're going to want to play in order to justify everything else that is Jade Lodum centric in your deck. So that kind of does suck. Alright, it really does. Alright, next up we have is the Jade Idol. Now here's one of the only Jade Golem cards I think is fucking broken as shit. Actually no, there's quite a few of them. Jade Golem. It's a druid card. Choose one, summon a Jade Golem, or shuffle 3 copies of this card into your deck. So obviously, playing this turn 1, this could be actually quite huge. It really could. Oh, hey, 1 mana, I summon a 1/1. That's not all that impactful. May just go, hero power, done. So it kind of sucks. But because it's only 1 mana, it actually starts working very well with other things. Enter in Fandral. Fandral, now you get your damn Golem, and you get the 3 copies of your deck. Now, how good exactly is that? Adding more cards into your deck means the consistency of your build kind of goes down, which means you're going to have a lot of card cycle. Enter in Gadgetzan Auctioneer to help out with this, alright? So it is feasibly possible that you could get a shit ton of Jade Idols into your deck, alright? And if you could cycle enough of them into your hand at one time, you build this giant smoke board. Now, the problem with this concept is you're going to have to survive long enough for this to be valid. Now, this is not a card generally you want to have in your opening hand. I would much rather have Raven's Idol or Enchanted Raven in my opening hand than ever having this card. Living Roots, hell. This is not a card I want in my opening hand, which right there kind of makes me a little questionable. But if you've got a solid enough game plan to use it, this card could be broken as shit. Alright? Seriously. Like, the never-ending Jade Idol is a fucking reality, people. Alright, moving on. We have Devolve. Now, I've heard a lot of people have commentary about this card, and I have my own thoughts on it. 2 mana, transform all enemy minions into random ones that cost 1 less. So basically, it's the inverse of Evolve. Instead of dealing with your minions, it deals with your opponent's minions. Now, a lot of people have already stated, oh, this card is garbage. There are a lot of situations where this card is completely bad. One of the best situations I could see for this card is to neutralize the effect of certain Death Rattle minions so that they're no longer powerful for N'Zoth play. Alright, if you think about it, there are many Death Rattle minions that you generally don't want to use a Hex on when you're playing Shaman. Alright? You don't want to use it. You'd much rather save it for those big core ones. Your Sylvanas, your Tyrion, your Cairn Bloodhoof, right? But there's other really nasty threats that exist out there as well. You've got your Shifting Shades, you've got the Infested Taurens, Infested Wolf, the 1/1 that turns into a 5/5, those are all really nasty threats, right? Now, if you could take care of it with a Devolve and leave your damn hexes for your bigger targets, then all of a sudden, you have completely neutralized N'Zoth whatever deck. Is it overly good? No, not really, because you're really only targeting one specific deck in a meta where there's probably going to be about 2 to 3 different basic builds for every single class. So that's kind of super teching, so I think this might actually be something used in tournaments more than anything else. On the other side of that, I also see it having, pardon me, I can barely talk here, I've been hitting the eggnog, having value as an assistant to, say, an AoE clear, alright? And the reason why I say this, if you've got a board of 4/4s or 3/3s already present on the board, you drop them down to 2 mana minions, most likely they're not going to have a lot of health, so all of a sudden your AoE is now able to clear the board. Yes, I know, I'm using the whole concept of how equality is good because of AoE. Now, this does not share any of the same qualities that equality has. Obviously, that card can be used in multiple circumstances where this one really can't. But it is something else to be considered. Now, the one downside I definitely see about this is using Devolve anytime your opponents have a 9 mana creature on the board. And here's why. 9 mana creature's value is significantly less than the value of an 8-drop. So if my opponent plays the Ysera and I devolve it down into Ragnaros, I get fucked hard. Really hard. Super hard. And that's not a situation I really want. Not to mention the fact that, Tyrion's also in that 8 slot, the Ragnaros Lightlord's in that slot. So there's a lot of really nasty situations that could have popped from that. So, again, is this card good? Situationally, yes, it is kind of good in very few circumstances. Could it be useful across multiple metas? And it all depends on how things are going to shape up. But right now, this is kind of a tech card choice, hands down. Alright, moving on. Call in the finishers. Okay, this card is, I'm going to say right now, is actually pretty fucking bad. The only time this card actually makes any sort of sense is if you're playing either a very aggressive Murloc deck or you're playing in Wild. And the reason why I say this card makes a lot of sense in Wild is because old Murkai is in Wild. Outside of that, this card is fucking trash tier. I would never fucking play this shit. Period, point blank. Alright. Next card up we've got is the Jade Behemoth. 6 mana, 3/6 Druid minion, and it's a taunt. Yes, because the one thing that Druids didn't have fucking enough of was taunt. But this one's a lot more easier to deal with than the other 6-drop taunt that they have. the Dark Arakoa. Okay, so it's a 3/6 taunt Battlecry summon a Jade Golem. Now when you look at the value, you look at what you get off Dark Arakoa, and then you look at this, and you're starting to go, where the fuck is the value? Now, obviously, Dark Arakoa is far superior to this card, hands down. Nobody's ever going to deny that shit. But in a specific build, focusing around Jade Golems, this card makes perfect fucking sense, moreover, than the Dark Arakoa would. So, I like this card. I do. I actually think this card makes a lot of sense. And I definitely starting to realize that Jade Golem Druid is going to be a thing, guys. And if Jade Golem Druid's going to be a thing, you bet your ass Savage Roar is going to be a fucking thing returning. So, keep that in mind. So beautiful. Next up we've got, and this is the final card, the Jinyu Water Speaker. Yes, Magikarp pissed off. 4 mana for a 3/6. Holy shit, good stat line already. Battlecry restores 6 health. Overload 1. Wait a minute, they gave Shaman a Battlecry healing minion. At first I was a little like, yeah, that's not overly spectacular. There's always been Battlecry minion. But I mean, it's 4 mana for a 3/6, restore 6. That's actually kind of cool. Like, this is, oh, you played a Fireball. I completely negated that Fireball, and I got a fucking 3/6 on the board. Now what? Now what? You know? So I definitely see this in some mid-range decks, some control decks definitely using this. It makes a lot of sense as an anti-aggro tech to kind of get to your late game. So definitely in a Halazeal type deck, I definitely see some stuff like this coming into play. And I think it's actually really, really good. I do. I honestly think this card is really good. And I guarantee we're going to probably see some people play around with it. 4 mana for a 3/6. It's not obviously anti-Killbot, but it's pretty damn close. Alright? And it also can survive a lot more than the anti-Killbot did. So there's your trade-off. 2 life and you gain that 3 health on the fucking minion. So all in all, yeah, it's a pretty fucking solid card. But anyway, guys, that's going to be all for this card review. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Which cards did you really like? What are some cool synergies? Is Devolve really just a piece of shit fucking card? Let me know down below. And as always, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe. It really does help support the channel and me. Till next time, this ship saying, stay safe, have fun. May Orange Jesus bless you. Peace.